Start by saying all praises to Yahweh, Ba'Shem Yahushai, Ba'Shem Harakakadash. The honors the apostles and elders, the great Musa and Rawal. Shalom to all the brothers doing the work, pushing this word, in all sincerity and truth to the four corners of the earth, man. Basically out once again, doing the same thing we always do every week until such a time as the duty can no longer be fulfilled. We're basically prophesying against Esau's kingdom, against his current rulership, and basically saying that according to the words of the Holy Bible, according to the scriptures, that this place is coming to its end. And that's why, the prophecies are basically lining up to show all these things coming through. A big part of that is presently is the Yab, and that's like a big point. The Max passports as well, these things are all working together basically to bring about prophecy. The biggest prophecy that's getting ready to happen is what? That mark, that Karagma, man, that insertable microchip. And hey, you can see how it's being worked towards. You got the medical side working on it, the kind of so-called groundbreaking side with things like Neuralink and whatnot, and then as well with the enforcement, the information angle with the monetary system and whatnot, going digital, where you got digital currencies, crypto one, crypto dollars, central banks basically looking to push out digital currency. And these things all show what? The times away, and we're basically in a time where this kingdom is at its end. And hey, we're bearing witness to it. We read this, Isaiah 24, and 1. I'll start from the top. Behold, the Lord Yahweh maketh the earth empty, and maketh it waste, and turneth it upside down, and scattereth abroad the inhabitants thereof. And it shall be as with the people, so with the priest, as with the servant, so with the master, as with the maid, so with her mistress, as with the buyer, so with the seller, as with the lender, so with the borrower, as with the taker of usury, so with the giver of usury. So it's the same thing like what went down during the time in Egypt, where it said from Pharaoh on down to the lowest servant, everyone had their firstborn get touched, and that's the same thing that is basically going to be like in this time. You go into Revelation 13, and it says, neither rich nor poor, free or bond, is basically going to be exempt from the mark, and that's something that you're going to see. It's basically going to be pushed out and promoted onto everyone, and it will start with it, being voluntary in various different manners and angles. But then what? It's basically going to become a mandatory thing, just like with the Yab, where it started, where it was, promoted, they were incentivizing it. Then afterwards, it was basically said like, hey, look, in a lot of places on the globe, where it's basically said, you got to comply, or you're going to lose the ability to do certain things. And that's really what's going to happen, man. And everyone's more or less in a state where they're ready to accept it. It's become normalized to expect restraints and restrictions when you're dealing with your life now. So it says, the land shall be utterly emptied and utterly spoiled, for the Lord Yahweh have spoken this word. Yeah, and that's the thing. This is about fulfilling the word of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. It's the word which is recorded in the scriptures. When we do, well, yeah, you can see what the people out here are pushing out. It's funny because I think there must be a protest or something going down. Because I checked earlier, they said like there's a protest going down a bit further down the street. And they stopped up the traffic for like 10-15 minutes now. So it's but that's kind of been the spirit of the times, man. People have been rebelling. People have been they've been ground down by the lockdowns before, and now with the restrictions just becoming normalized. Yeah, you got coppers coming round, but people have been ground down by all the restrictions, and now they're trying to slow down Say it again? Yeah, people have been ground down, and now the rebellion is basically got more and more persistent. 'Cause, yeah, there's been hella police vans around there. Because why? It's the people are making their displeasure known, and then you got the flip side as well. You got people that don't want any form of they don't want people to be promoting any form of resistance, because they're basically dreaming of just returning to where how everything was in the latter half of 2019. You're gonna have to open up.
Unless I got to stand up.
Oh, what do you mean?
I mean, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. What was I going to say? So, verse 4. The earth mourneth and fadeth away. The world languisheth and fadeth away. The haughty people of the earth do languish. The earth is defiled under the inhabitants thereof, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, broken the everlasting covenant. Yeah, these are the reasons why. As when you deal with the current society, the current way that things are run, it's the same thing when you go into Revelation. It's like everything that's been done is wickedness and confusion. It's basically being allowed to boil over to its peak, to the point where everyone's completely disconnected from any form of order or reason. And that's why it's like it's getting to the point where the system of pedestry, which was high during amongst that was something that was done greatly amongst the Greeks and the Romans, ancient Greeks and Romans. These societies, they promoted that shit heavy, and now you have it coming back. Because why? This society is a rebirth, the reincarnation of the Roman Empire, and as such, that's why you see it redoing and basically going back to the same form of practices that were done back in those times. And that's you go into was it first Maccabees, when it says evils are multiplied upon the earth, when the ancient Greeks came into power. That's the same thing that's gone down. And it's like now that same nation, which they called themselves the Greeks back then, now they're calling themselves the Europeans, the Americans, the British, but their biblical nationality is what is Esau Edom. When Esau Edom basically comes into power, evils are multiplied upon the earth. And that's why you see, now is the time when evils are multiplied upon the earth. Peace is nowhere to be found, man. The so-called illusion of peace is like, in this present time where people are walking around because they're not seeing bombs dropped, in their front yard. They're thinking everything's good, but then it's, everything you look at. Man, there was a story, I think it was, in India, they were saying, they were saying it from Myanmar, where they were saying, I believe it was in the US, either US or Britain, they had a bunch of the ancient relics in museums, and they were saying like, yo, they need to return it back to them. Same thing for India as well. I think they just won a case where they basically got a bunch of their shit returned, and people are saying like, oh, we're doing it to preserve it because, they're not very good at preserving their own culture and blah. But then it's like, okay,
yeah,
well,
because you came into the country and you fucked them over. That's why they ain't good at preserving it. Because you were the catalyst in them losing the possession of something they've had for many generations.
yeah, you came and robbed it first. That's how you got it.
Their own like crowns and whatnot that have been passed down for generations, and they still have them. But somehow they can't keep an artifact that you took out of their possession, and now it's fair. Really, what's happening is people are realizing you're the devil. That's really what's happening. People are realizing you're full of lies. And even you got wicked Jakes, I'll show you the quotes off. There's Jakes out here that basically hand in glove with this mad society, just like in the time of the Hellenization of the world. And they basically, even within Israel, as crazy as that sounds, basically pushing forward what? The agenda of the elites, alright? With its machinations right now. Really, it's the sheep who are just going to get down with it, because they ain't got time to think. That's something they've relinquished onto the elites. But, the ones that can, starting with the men that are in the truth, the elect, they can see through the bullshit. But then even now, it's other people as well. They're seeing all the BS shit, talking, and they're like, we've had enough of it. That's why Joel, the third chapter, tells you about the weak saying I am strong. They're gonna come to a point where not only do they feel sharpened, but they're gonna act upon that feeling or that knowledge of you had one over them. Now we're gonna get one over in you.
Therefore, verse 6, therefore have the curse devoured the earth, and they that dwell therein are desolate. Therefore the inhabitants of the earth are burned, and few men left. And yeah, that's basically going to be the level of conflict, that third woe. And you go back to the previous woes, the previous World War, World War One, World War Two, the casualties that occurred from those events are absolutely legendary, man. Like hundreds of millions of men died, and now we have a third one on the wise, man, on the horizon. You can see it coming. It's coming soon to a place near you. As such, that means that there's going to be a mass amount of death, and it says what? Says the earth, the inhabitants of the earth are burned as well, because the missiles are basically going to be doing work as well. Between the end of World War II was what was done with the atomic bomb that basically signaled the end, and then that technology has been developed further and further. Throughout the Cold War, you didn't have. It wasn't about the missiles being fired. It was about them being produced, them being stored, and basically being like, oh well, if you're gonna try and strike from here, we're gonna strike from there. But now it's gonna be a thing where the wind. That's because why the winds are being held back, because the destruction's basically being stopped from progressing. But once the winds are loosed, then the missile's going to be able to fly off easy. It says what? The new wine mourneth, the vine languisheth, all the merry hearted do sigh. The mirth of tabrets ceaseth, the noise of them that rejoice endeth, the joy of the heart ceaseth. Yeah, all the bliss, all the joy, all the forms of entertainment. These things have been like those things ceased during the lockdown, and there was a great lament amongst the people for forms of entertainment, man. That was a big part of the reason why people were getting so irate and so like whacked out of their minds, because any form of leisure, as far as they're concerned, any form of being able to distraction, I should say, of them being able to distract themselves from the present, that shit was all in the bin. And that's why now that it's come back, that's why everyone's at peace now. They're able to go. They can go to a little exhibition here, go to a concert, go on holiday. That's why they're down with the yab, because as far as for them, all these things. That's the whole point of being alive is being able to access these pleasures. And without them, then it's just like, why even bother? So that's just what the half season. They shall not drink wine with a song. Strong drink shall be bitter. Strong drink shall be bitter to them that drink it. The city of confusion is broken down. Every house is shut up that no man may come in. Yeah, the city of confusion. Because when you go into Revelation, it says what? Babylon the Great. And it's spoken as of what the daughter of Babylon. Because Babylon means confusion. And that's something that is our height. When you deal with Babylon, with America especially, America's in a mass form of confusion, man. You've got all kinds of messed up, all forms of history of things that have gone down amongst the people that are there, where these things haven't been addressed. And then as such, you basically got all kinds of issues that people have with one another, all kinds of striving people are doing against one another. People want a peace. There's no sense of cohesiveness amongst them, man. And that's the thing. When you deal with Daniel 2 is the statue. Daniel 2 says what? The find the 10 toes. It said it will be made of iron and miry clay because they will not cleave together. And that's just amongst Esau. Amongst Esau, there's no cleaving. Then you go to a place like America where you basically had it used as a beacon of progress, where if you want to go, you want to live, live life to the fullest, you go to America, you grind out, you try and make the American dream happen. So you got people coming from all over the globe, heaping together there, with all completely different ways of life, different ways of dealing with one another. So you just got even more confusion piling up on top. And that's why you have people get into all forms of violence against one another. This is why you have, what do you call it? Like those highly racialized conflicts. And that's why almost everything that goes on in the news in America, it'll be racialized. Because why? These things like all that history these nations have amongst one another, it's not gone anywhere. The Jake that are over there, they're over there because of slavery, man. When you do it with the so-called natives, with the Northern Kingdom, them guys were they used to have the land. Now they've been shot. They know they've been shafted. They're basically just like in a place where the whole system, where it used to be about how they deal, now they have no say or no investment in it. They're just getting crumbs on the side.
I've got a precept. Jeremiah 1:13. And the word of the Lord Yahweh came unto me the second time, saying, What seest thou? And I said, I see a sieving pot, and the face thereof is toward the north. And this is basically in the book of Jeremiah prophesying of the land of America. The sieving pot is what you know as today, what's called today, what do they call it?
A melting pot.
A melting pot, all right? So basically, today, America is, especially New York City, that's the pinnacle of a melting pot upon the earth. You have so many cultures mixed into one. That's why you have areas over there called little Russia, little Cuba, little this, little that. Because why? They're the mixing of these nations. And really, if you know anything in terms of dealing with the Bible, when the Lord, there's an actual event that happened. There's a first Babylon, right, in the book of Genesis, the 11th chapter. And that Babylon that appeared the first time, the first go around, all the nations were one speech, and they basically all came together and they sought to build a tower to basically, be up above there with the Heavenly Father. Another, way to extrapolate it from it as well, so that if there was a flood, right after the flood, if a flood came again, then they'll be able to survive in the high tower. But he had the Heavenly Father send down his angels and see what was going on. And then when they saw what was happening, they basically said, look, we're going to confound their language. That's where you had the dispersing of the nations, the beginning of the division. That's why you have around that time, you have a man named Peleg. All right, Peleg, when you go to the Hebrew, Peleg, which means division or divide. Because the Heavenly Father divided the nations. And that's why you had a man that came through that lineage known as Eber, which goes back to the Hebrew Ibar, which means Hebrew, which word Hebrew means from the past. Why? Because they kept that name, he kept that language from the past, the Hebrew language. Alright? But the point being is that the Lord is about distinguishing the nations. He wants this set of people over there, that set of people over there. He wants everything like that. And if anything, above all, he wants his people, Israel, to be ruling over all the nations, to basically establishing law upon the earth, right? And that's the time we're in right now. We're in the time of the Tower of Babel attempting to be built once again, right? And the Heavenly Father is seeing to it, and he ain't gonna hold his tongue no more.
On what you said, Deuteronomy 32:8, when the Most High divided to the nations their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel. So that was, the separation of the sons of Adam. So everyone comes from Adam, just like everyone comes from Noah as well. And then what? You had the separation. It was like what? The bounds were set for the sake of Israel, man. Why? Because Israel are the ones that are meant to rule. And that's the thing as well. Every nation had their inheritance. And that's something that's been defiled, man, by Esau. That's why, looking at America, that's a key example of an inheritance just being done out. Someone else just coming in and then basically being like, okay, we're gonna have to run like this. And that's why, you know, people all kinds of upset. So back in
It's because 2 Ezra 15 and 8. I will hold my tongue no more as touching their wickedness, which they profanely commit. Neither will I suffer them in those things in which they wickedly exercise themselves. Though the innocent and righteous blood crieth unto me, and the souls of the just complain continually. And therefore saith the Lord, I will surely avenge them and receive unto me all the innocent blood from among them. And this is something that was established going back hundreds of years, with the so-called white man being Esau Edom, according to the Bible, establishing his kingdom in what? Blood. Right? Blood of who? So-called Native American Indians, right, who were the children of Israel in the land of America, but then also with the so-called Negro tribes, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, right, to this day, right, as Deontay Wilder, you know, said, man, till this day, Esau is still doing this, man. And it also tells you the law of Exodus that if a man steals a man, he found in his hand, that there's a judgment that needs to be bestowed upon that man, right? We're in the midst of that judgment of the theft of the nation of Israel, as well as the theft of their inheritance, right? And the Lord's going to reap them accordingly.
You got it?
Yeah.
Cool. So back in Isaiah 24, 11, Isaiah 24:11, there is a crying for wine in the streets. All joy is darkened. The mirth of the land is gone. In the city is left desolation, and the gate is smitten with destruction. When thus it shall be in the midst of the land among the people, there shall be as a shaking of an olive tree, and as the gleaning grapes when the vintage is done. They shall lift up their voice, they shall sing for the majesty of the Lord Yahweh. They shall,
Yes.
I was thinking, wherefore glorify ye the Lord Yahweh in the fires, even the name of the Lord Yahweh, power of Israel in the isles of the sea. For the uttermost part of the earth have we heard songs, even glory to the righteous. But I said, my leanness, woe unto me. The treacherous dealers have dealt treacherously, yea, the treacherous dealers have dealt treacherously. Fear and the pit and the snare are upon me, O inhabitant of the earth. And it shall come to pass, that he who fleeth from the noise of the fear shall fall into the pit, and he that cometh out of the midst of the pit shall be taken in the snare. For the windows from on high are open, and the foundations of the earth do shake. Yeah, you, like, the level of wild, complete and total mess that is going to be delivered upon the people is going to be in multiple different grades, multiple different layers and levels, to where you're going to think, oh, I've just managed to avoid one downside. You might have been starving for like 2 weeks and then stumble upon some food, but then after you find the food, then someone finds you, and then or you might have had food, or you might have had a place to stay. Then next thing you know, bro, the place gets run through, man. The place gets carpet bombed. There's all kinds of madness can go down, man. A flesh-eating virus could just start running through.
Well, they said that where there was a STD going around right now that basically flesh eating. That's what they said. So, hey, the plagues are gonna multiply on the earth, and that's what comes down to what is that time of judgment. So a lot of people, the way they think about it is like, it's not that bad. But now when you go back to the plagues of Egypt, there was 10 plagues, alright? And the plagues hit different people, different places at different times. Right? So them different plagues that hit them at different times, they weren't like, I believe there were 2 plagues where they affected the cattle. And on one, but did they kill all the cattle one time? No. Right, another time it did. But guess what? That's why a lot of people will say, no, not all of them. That will, that gives room for faith. For you to be like, well, is it something with the Heavenly Father? Is it not? You have to have faith to believe it is. Right? There was another point I was going to say as well. It's escaping me right now. That's the main point.
One sec. I just realised I need to delete old files because otherwise we'll run out of space. I'll pause it, yeah?